Tao Te Ching, illustrated, The Way to Goodness and Power by Lao Tzu, read by Lunar D8 and mispronounced horribly. Part 1. Introduction. The Tao Te Ching probably holds the record for the most variants and translation of any work of literature, and this version can make no more claim to accuracy than any other. Its aim is to offer a degree of clarity and coherence that is sometimes missing. This is not a snide criticism of the other translators, but an acknowledgement that for the purposes of this book, certain definite decisions were taken about the nature of the original text. They are no more right or wrong than many others. This is part and parcel of the enigma of this extraordinary work. Old Master. According to tradition, Tao Te Ching was written by a single author, known as Lao Tzu, around the 6th century BC. Lao Tzu, in fact, is an honorific title, translating as Old Master, rather than an actual name. If he actually existed, his personal name is generally given as Li Er, with the posthumous name Li Dan. He is so described in the Shiji, the records of the Grand Historian of China, written by Sima Qian in the late 2nd century BCE. In fact, just as with Homer in the Greek literature, it is unlikely that there was ever such a person, and the work is an accumulation of a variety of sources. There are a number of different source texts, both partial and complete, with the earliest discovered on bamboo slip, excavated in 1993 near Guodian, Hubei province, dating from sometime around 300 BC. In the Warring States period, the other significant early original texts also came from archaeological excavations in neighboring Hunan province at the extraordinary site of Mawandui, and is written on miraculously preserved silk. It dates to 2nd century BC and in the Western Han Dynasty. The other principal texts are from commentary written by scholars in the first 3 centuries AD. In the Eastern Han Dynasty, the Three Kingdoms period, this translation has essentially followed the text of one of the 3 later commentaries, that of Wang Bi, with a number of small emendations from the other versions where sense and context seem to make them preferable. These changes only ever alter nuance rather than the fundamental meaning. The standard modern text of the Tao Te Ching comprises around 5,000 characters, divided into 81 chapters. It also divides into 2 parts: the Tao Te Ching, classic of the Tao, and the Dai Jing, the classic of virtue. The first one is pages 1 through 37, and the second is pages 38 through 81. Chapters. There is no certainty that this was their original order, and the division of the chapters may also be a later formulation. Whatever its antecedents, however, the work is, and has long been, firmly established as the Tao Te Ching, the classic way, and of virtue. Interpreting the Tao Te Ching. There are many different ways of interpreting Tao Te Ching. In terms of language, all ancient classical Chinese is highly elliptical, and the Tao Te Ching exceptionally so, spare even in its use of marker particles to give a syntactical framework. In addition, there are frequent references to things that may have been common knowledge in the Warring States period, but whose precise meaning and symbolism are long lost. For the most part, these barriers are negotiable, but in crossing them the translator and reader face the real challenge of interpretation. What is the underlying nature of the book? For some of it is a mythological and mystic work, with roots deep in ancient tradition, and representing the remains of an ancient cosmology. It is seen as a sacred text of the religious beliefs that came to be known as Taoism. For others, the religious aspect is entirely secondary, and is taken as a work of metaphysical philosophy, rooted more in practicality than mysticism. Finally, and this is the view taken for this translation, it can be seen as a work of socio-political philosophy, possibly written specifically as guidance for the ruler of a small to medium-sized state. The text contains specific instructions and admonitions to such a ruler, which are dictated by and dependent on the overarching mystic cosmology. In this translation, the deliberately opaque or unfathomable mysterious possibilities the text offer have in general given place to an attempt at clarity and consistency within the constraints of the text itself and its assumed purpose. At the same time, no translation of this work can allow itself to cast aside the essential lyricism and unfettered embracing of paradox of the original. The sole purpose here is to offer another avenue for readers to explore this extraordinary work for themselves. The Bagua are 8 trigrams used in Taoist cosmology to represent the fundamental principles of reality. The template for each of the 8 areas arranged in an octagram shape. At the center are the characters for yin and yang. Chapter 1. The Mystery of the Tao. The Tao that we can comprehend is not the eternal and infinite Tao. The names that we give are not the eternal and infinite names. Void is how we name the origin of the cosmos. Amplitude is how we name the creation of the things that fill it. Thus, it is in the void that we can contemplate the scope of the Tao, and in amplitude its subtleties. These two have different names, but a common source, and both are mysteries. They are mystery upon mystery, gateways to the infinite mutability of the Tao. The Chinese word is in common current use, meaning a road, a way or a path, in both concrete and figurative sense. But in this context, as following 81 chapters will make clear, it embodies much more than this, and defies translation. Indeed, it could be said that it has no specific meaning, or at least means infinitely more than a word or phrase can encompass. I have chosen to stay with the pinyin romanization Tao and leave the reader to interpret it.